record. Okay. Okay, so go ahead, take a moment to make yourselves comfortable. And you can close your eyes if you want. The most important thing is to allow yourself to connect with your breath and to let that breath bring you to this present moment. So as you breathe in, you can breathe in presence and awareness of the breath, your body, your being here now. And as you breathe out, you can allow all the other thoughts, distractions, noise, busyness, responsibilities to just drop for this moment that we're together. Good. And again, take a breath in, pulling yourself into yourself, really bringing all of you back into you and your now moment, and releasing all else. And as we gather here in this circle around the globe, I want to call in the guides, angels, higher self of each of us, and acknowledge that as we gather on this, the darkest night of the year, the night when things stay dark for a very long time and the day is very short, to acknowledge that even in this dark moment, we know that the sun is to come. And as we recall back, we know that our ancestors of old spent time on this night gathering, lighting the candles, lighting the Yule log, and offering prayers and gratitude for the year that has passed and the year to come, hoping that their stores of food would last the winter and that the winter would be gentle on them. And so we, in our modern era, now call forth the prayers and the guidance to bring forth a new year and a new era that offers more love and light and grace and ease and support for the generations to come. And so I welcome you to the circle. Thank you. You can take a breath and open your eyes. And I wanted to start by inviting everyone to speak just for 2-ish, 3 minutes and share what's present for you right now in your life. We all know each other now where we're from. There's some new women who've joined the circle, but they were on the previous call. So, yeah, so would anyone like to start? Okay, I'll start. So what's present for me right now as we're in this dark time of the year in the Northern Hemisphere is I'm looking deeply at the shadow of leadership and the shadow of power. And some of you may know that there was this whole like cult thing starting to happen in Sedona. And then I gathered there's a women's circle here every Tuesday. And apparently there's at least one and possibly more fake spiritual guru men who are reeling in women with promises of enlightenment to have sex with them and take their money. And as a circle, we have strategized some very specific ways to deal with that, including talking to the men in the community. And so as I step into this role of empowered feminine leadership, and I'm really looking at all the abuses of leadership. So that's what's most present for me right now in terms of my own inner work and the reflection on the outside. And not least of which because of all the information that's coming out about all the sexual abuse and the breadth and the depth of it. It's sort of shocking. And more will come about what I'm perceiving about that and how we deal with it. Because going into rage and fury and starting to, literally or symbolically castrate men is not the solution, but feeling the feelings of rage and fury is important. So all of that is what's present for me, and I see how valuable it is with regard to leadership and the new leadership we need on the planet. I spent 5 days in a deep private retreat here in my little bungalow, where I spiritually mapped out and called forth and purified my physical and spiritual body for the year to come. And then I practically also mapped out some goals and objectives with regard to my relationships and business and what I want to bring forward creatively this year as well. So with that, I will pass the floor to someone else.
Okay, I can be next.
Yay!
What I recently discovered is that this has to do with my mom, which I got a lot of issues with, but I have actually reached an understanding for her, and I'm actually trying to help her. And because I realized she is sick and she needs help, and I'm thinking, like, the link I put on the page is when she's pushing my buttons, it's something I'm going to learn. And I'm learning to not take it personal.
Yeah.
Because it's she that's hurting. And I'm so thankful for finally seeing that. And
Yes.
I have still a lot of work to do, because this is not done overnight, but I'm seeing it. I'm getting it.
Yes. What a shift, huh? Just that little pivot into perceiving it differently. It's so liberating.
Yes.
It's like you don't have to carry that crap anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And me and my daughter, we are going to my mother's later today to exchange Christmas presents, and it's like, it's okay. I took her out last week even for shopping.
Wow.
Even though it drained me, because I could see how sick she is, really. But I'm able to do things for her.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. And the link you're referring to is the link, the woman there on the Oprah show, the Eat, Pray, Love gal. Yeah. Did everyone see that link that she shared about, well, if you think you're spiritually enlightened, go spend time with your family
for Christmas.
For Christmas. It's the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and she's on one of the Oprah shows. It's a very short clip, but Marianne shared it on our Facebook group. And it's really, it's wise and insightful. And she received that from her teacher in India. That was her teacher in India's message to her. So great. Wow. Powerful shift. And I know this is something you've really worked on for quite some time, and really wanting to make the shift. And so congratulations again.
Yes, thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I feel it's a change. Things are changing. It's the same with my hand. It allows my family to do the kitchen stuff this Christmas. I will sit and watch.
Yes.
And chat with the women. The guys are going to do the dishes. It's a change. I've been asking for it, and now I'm getting it.
Excellent. Excellent. So now the next step will be to be able to ask for it without having an injury to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will come. That will come. So, to do it guilt-free, in other words. Like, you don't need an excuse to say, you know what? I don't want to do the dishes. Somebody else do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Cool. So who's next?
Okay.
Yes. Hi. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So I've had an amazing, I'd say, six, 7 weeks. Lots has been revealed to me. I've been doing a lot of work in a body work course and some other major life changes. And what I've always wanted to do, but I've never really had the guts to pursue this path, is work with people that feel suicidal, work with depression. And I've always tried to, I've even, like, it's come to me when I was 30, it came to me when I was 23, finished university, and I volunteered in the Samaritans, which is a helpline, but I never thought about, I thought about going back to university and study, but I thought, oh, it's too long, it's too expensive, and all of this. And then about 3 weeks ago, I found a course here in Dubai to do a master's in clinical psychology. And I've been searching for 5 years, and I've been looking at all the online courses, but the problem with the online courses is that if it's online, there's no practical experience. It doesn't really mean anything anyway. Which will just give me the license, and then I can just do it how I want. I can still work for myself and do it in the way and bring in all the other healings and things that I've learned.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to be beginning the application process, to be on, finally I'm following my heart. I'm following the career that I really want and feel called to do. So I'm really excited about that, and it's mirroring my my personal journey as well. It's been during these 6 weeks, I've given up alcohol, which I've been called to do for a long time, but was in denial and struggled to do that. And taking more control of my eating habits around as well, because when I put down the alcohol, then I can compulsively eat. And now I'm using God and my spiritual practice to keep me grounded on that. Everything seems to be thankfully falling into place. So that's where I am.
Good news. Beautiful, beautiful. I very much resonate with the call to stop drinking and denying it for a long time, until, like, I haven't really had a drink in a long time. And for me, it was wine. It's always like good wine with good food. That was my final sort of like, do I have to give this up too? Yes, I did. And there's a freedom that comes at some point. I went to a party here recently, and I was like, wow, I came home after dancing and socializing, and I never even had that moment of like, ooh, I'd like a wine just to kind of relax. Like, that was over, and I felt like, okay. Before that, it'd be like, okay, I'm not drinking. Now it's like, no, I'm not drinking. So great. So, and congratulations on grad school and finding something that works for you. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, very exciting. I see Claudia's here. Hi, Claudia.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm just putting the camera on. Sorry,
That's okay.
You can hear me okay, can't you? Yes, there we are. Sorry, I'm just at my different residence. Hi, everyone. I thought it was later, but you're just starting now as well, aren't you?
Yeah, we've been just sharing a little bit about what's up for us right now, what's present for us as I did a little invocation for the solstice, and then we're sharing what's present for us in our lives right now. And we've all shared except for Laura and you. So who wants to go next?
Off to you, Laura.
Okay. It's like, what is present for me? It's like nothing but everything. There's been a real hibernation time, but at the same stage, everything is moving forward. So it feels very connected, very effortless. It's still like this angelic realm since I had the whole like hospital experience in October, and it's like that massive connection still of like, it's that's the only way I can describe it. I still don't have the words to describe it, but it's like a deep fulfillment, contentment, peacefulness of I show up and do, yet everything is already done. And it's really beautiful. And so I've been very much connecting to that. And anytime I'm getting pulled out into the craziness of life, it's just like, no, I'm not. And it's that, no. And it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. So solstice for me is a really, really special time. I love solstice is like one of my favorite times of year. So I'm going to head down. Kind of, we've some really sacred sites in Ireland. So I've booked part of today off just to go and just be in nature and go visit them. And I've literally just done a sound bath this morning here for my family. So yeah, so it's been, yeah, like life is really good. And for the first time ever, actually, I pretty much have all my work events for 2018 mapped out, which is like,
Wow.
and when I say mapped out, they're all in a diary, and it's like, okay, so I need to do this for this and that for that. And I say, I need to, but it's like the inspiration is like, or you need to do this, you need to do that. And it's like,
Right.
keep this one free, don't do this, do that. And it's like, okay. And it's just all flowing beautifully.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
yeah, so just I'm trusting it all and enjoying the ride.
Fantastic. Really, really good. And I've heard of other people who've had like hospital experiences that shifted them into a deeper state of connection before. It's rare, but I've heard of it before. So how nice. And you said you did a sand bath for your family? What's that?
Oh, a sound bath? A sound bath.
Sound.
Yeah, all the Tibetan bowls, the gongs, the drums,
Yeah.
the crystal bowls. I had them all out this morning doing that for them.
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. And when you say family, who is the family that you?
At the moment, my mum and my dad are here, so I've moved back to their house there during the summer, and then my brother has come home for Christmas as well,
Nice.
just on Tuesday. So for the three of them and the dog.
Beautiful. Oh, so good. So thank you for sharing that and for bringing that beautiful grace. It's like a grace and a flow into the circle. Yeah. Good. And Claudia, how are you and what's present for you right now?
Well, mine's all very different in terms of that sounds so zen and like being, really celebrating the day. I'm like just doing 1,000 things. I'm now in Switzerland with my family as well, with my parents, and I've brought my 3 kids. My mum's been sick. I'm trying to do taxes because it's the end of the year from last year. We're a year behind here in doing taxes. And launching, as Dawn knows, this training program, and just doing too much. So yeah. So, I mean, it's good that we're doing this because it's at least I get an opportunity to celebrate because I love solstice too, especially winter and summer solstice. And yeah, just sort of, I can't believe it's already then going to be the days getting longer. It's like, how fast does it go? So yeah, it's very beautiful here. It's very Christmassy. Sorry, I'm not
Nice.
the lights. Anyway, it's very just the atmosphere because it's very Christmas market's very Germanic in Switzerland, in the north of Switzerland. It's all really it's really wintry, and we had snow, so it's actually great to be here. It's just not very practical, and that all the things I have to do, and I don't have any childcare, so I'm working at night. So I was up till 2 last night doing taxes, and I know I'll have to do that again today.
Oh, wow.
So, but it's what it is.
The winter wonderland and taxes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know there's a lot going on for you. And in this morning's call, this morning for me, we had the Thailand, Southeast Asia contingent, and also a couple of women from the States. And we were all noticing this acceleration of things. So that may be part of it too. And then there's something I wanted to share that Christina, who's one of the 2 new women who's coming, she's done a lot. She's part of a network of women internationally who meet in these kind of, chat rooms. And so when we're all on mute at times, when we're all on mute so one person can talk, she showed us this, so I'm going to share it with you because then we'll all know it, except there's a couple women who haven't made it here. But when a woman says something that you resonate with, you can go like this. And when they're in some difficulty or challenge and you want to support them in some way, or you agree with them, you can go like this. So this is like, oh yeah, I resonate. I get it. And I'm with you, sister. So those will be our, not that we have many more calls, but anyway, it's worth having because who knows how this will go afterwards. So great. Okay. So what I have planned for us today is this teaching from the outline. I'll teach like a couple of steps, and then I'll check in with you all and see if you have any questions or anything. And you can follow along in the outline. My outline is on my computer, so when I'm looking at it, I can't see all of you. So what I was going to ask you to do is mute yourself, but if something becomes urgent, you can unmute and just say, hey, Dawn, because you'll know that I can't see you. But before I do that, are there any questions? Is there anything, comments, additional important shares that you want to share before we go into the class?
I would just like to ask something, but it's not related.
Yeah.
It may not be related to this, but it's come up in my head a few times. So forgive me for
Yeah.
out. Is there the opportunity when we are there to buy crystals and bowls and things like that, ceremonial things, or do we need to bring them with us? Or
Oh, that's a good question. There's a couple little shops that sell crystals if you come early. So if you want something big, the prices seem to be somewhat reasonable. There's a place that has Tibetan bowls, but overall, I wouldn't, if there's something important, yeah. However, unfortunately, it's on Bar Street outside of the old city, which is like, so go during the day because it's where the sleazy prostitute users hang out. I don't know why it's there, but if there's something in particular, Nicola, that you really want to bring, I would bring it. And if it's too big to bring, then it's not meant to be here.
Sure.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, that helps.
Yeah, and I've got Christina, Gina, Dawn, Sarah. I've got 5 women plus me from Thailand.
Okay.
And some of us have some of that stuff, so we'll be bringing it. So great,
Okay.
good question. Yeah. Anything else before we begin? Okay, so go ahead and mute yourself unless you feel pretty sure there won't be any noise distractions. Oh, I just realized, okay, it's okay if you're muted, but I had to reboot my computer because there was something wrong, so now I got to open my files again to open the document that I need. Class outline, done. Okay, can't get it that way. I gotta go like, where is it? Hello, here it is. Okay, so I'm almost situated here. Okay, so here we go. So the class outline, you can see I have the 9 basic steps, and then I wrote that little thing at the 3 short paragraphs. So I'll just go over that now, and then we'll dive into the first couple steps, and then I'll check in with you. So within this simple 9-part structure, there's an extraordinary amount of room for creativity. And some of the class today, I'll be giving you a few examples where you can see different ways things can be done. And, I've led and attended hundreds of ceremonies using this basic structure, and they're all unique. This one comes particularly from my roots in Wicca training. And if you're not familiar, Wicca is the pre-Christian spiritual and cultural tradition of Europe. So this training isn't Wicca per se, it's training on a structure that can work in many ways. So you can apply it for holding gatherings, creating sacred space, and also for managing and facilitating transformational groups and ceremonies. So with that, the first thing that happens, and none of this is dogma like you have to do it, but the first thing that typically happens in this kind of thing is the space where the ceremony will be held is cleansed and purified. This one in particular is not required, but you can do it, and it's often done before the gathering takes place. So before anyone ever shows up, the priestess or the facilitator host may do a short ceremony or simply purify the actual physical space where it will be done. And that purification can come in a number of ways. It can be herbs and incense around. It could be ringing a bell or something, or a gong around the space. It could be sprinkling salt. Salt is a more of a traditional one. It could be incense, smudging, water. So you could have a vessel with water or salt water if you want, and you can just sprinkle around the space. And you usually start in the east and you go clockwise. So you go east and then you make your way around to the south, to the west, to the north, and back to the east. And it's not necessary, but you can do it. You can also wait till the group gathers, and before you ground and center, the high priest or priestess would go to the outside of the circle and using the same things I just told you, or an athame, which is a double-edged sword, or even their finger, and kind of point and like cast the defining line that separates the space for sacred work and the space outside of sacred work. Then the other thing is you can set up the altar either together as a group or beforehand. Typically what I do is I smudge, when I have things at my house, I smudge my home, especially that room, at least that room where I have gatherings, and then I set up the altar. And the altars can be as creative as you want them to be, and you probably all have some kind of altar space somewhere in your home. I like to create altars with the theme connected with whatever the theme of the ceremony is going to be. And we're going to talk more about that in a few steps from now. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. And we'll do part of our co-creation when we're physically together we'll be setting up altars as well. It's fun and it's creative. So cleansing and purifying the space is the first thing that you do. And that is, again, pre-ceremony. Then the next thing is when the group actually arrives, or whenever your people actually arrive and you gather together in the space, it's always nice, and this could be for anything. This doesn't have to be ceremonial. This could be some kind of meeting or something. It's really nice when you can find a way to ground and center the group. And this allows everyone to release the distractions of the day and come fully present. So it can be somewhat ceremonial, but it doesn't have to be. It can be as simple as asking everyone to take a breath. And I made some distinctions in the first class, which I hadn't planned on, but I'm going to share them here too. When you have a group of people who work together on a regular basis, and there's a lot of trust built and familiarity, you can do this part. There's a lot of things you can do differently, but with this part, you can literally come together, hold hands, look in each other's eyes, take a nice deep breath with a sigh, grounded and centered. When you have a group of strangers, or for example, like here in Pai, they've got a women's circle every single week, and there's some core women who come every week because they live here, but it's open to all women, all sisters. So you get a lot of travelers coming in and out. When in that case, I find what's more helpful for people who are shy or have never been to a circle before or something like that, is first bring them into their own self. So guide everyone to make themselves comfortable. They can close their eyes and just take a few deep breaths to bring all your energy back into yourself. That's one way. You can have them connect with the earth, feel the grounding of the earth, anything that helps them first connect in with themselves first. And then after that, if you feel it, you can have them look to each other, hold hands. There's a beautiful thing that Sarah, who will be at our retreat, she led the women's group this past Tuesday. She had us do, we stood up and held hands. And first we would squeeze our right hand. So we would squeeze the hand of the woman to our right to acknowledge her presence and express our appreciation. And then we would squeeze, and so we'd be receiving a squeeze in our left hand. And then we switched, we went the other way. And I thought that was a really nice way to kind of hold your own space, because you're not necessarily yet building like intimacy bonds with looking in each other's eyes, but you're feeling each other and honoring each other. So grounding and centering is just the way to really bring the group together. So before I go on to the biggest part of this, which is calling in directions, or the lengthiest part anyway, let me just check in with y'all. Is there anything Any comments, questions? No? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Do you all have the outline with you? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so the next part is calling in the directions. Now, there are different traditions which have different symbologies. And so I'm, again, going to teach you the ones that I know, which is a little bit of a mishmash between, it's mostly Wicca, but there's also some Native American influence as well. And so the first thing is that calling in the directions defines the space between the worlds. That's what it's called. It's the space between the normal waking consciousness and ordinary life and the sacred space of magic and ritual work. It sets the physical, time, and dimensional space. So that's why we do it. And there are many, many ways we can invoke the directions. So there's one that the traditional charge of the invocation of the directions begins. Hail, guardians of the watchtowers of the east, powers of air. And then you call them in. And I'll be doing this, as we actually do ceremony. You'll get to hear me do this, and we'll have other ones too. And I won't always be calling in the directions, but initially. So then you would, hail, guardians of the watchtowers of the, and you say the direction, and then power of, and then you say the elements, and then you let the muse inspire you. Or you might actually have something written down. Like when you're new to it, you might actually want to write down a script of the direction you're calling in. And sometimes these calling in the directions can be extraordinarily ceremonial, like dressing the part. So someone who was the South and Fire would be all in red and a red mask, or, and just really make a whole thing of it. And I've done those before. And sometimes it's very simple. Hail East, power of air, welcome to our circle. Hail South, power of fire, welcome to our circle, and just go around like that. And many things in between. A couple other ways that I like to call in the directions. One is the grandmother song. Let me just peek here. Claudia, have you ever heard me sing the grandmother song? No, you'd know it if you had. So, okay, no worries. So the grandmother song, I'm not going to sing it now because I've been talking a lot. My throat's a little dry, but I will sing it in circle. I will teach you all that song when we do like learning chants and stuff. It's extremely beautiful, and it's basically just calling in the grandmothers of the four directions. And then you could use animals. I mean, there are just many, many ways to invoke the directions. So what I want to do now is just go through some of the qualities, the symbolic things you could use for each of the four directions in their order: east, south, west, and north. So the east is the power of air. And air is connected with things like thought, communication, mind, winged animals, birds that fly, and sunrise. The colors are blues and yellows typically. Blue is the color of the sky, and yellow is often associated with the mind, even though in the Hindu tradition, the Vedic tradition, it's the solar plexus. But the way I learned it, yellow is also a color that's related to thought sometimes. Also, I always like to point out that, the tool is the athame, which is a double-edged blade. And the function of an athame is to symbolically cut through the fog of confusion in order to activate clarity of mind. And an athame can also be used to cast a circle or define the boundaries between the worlds. Now, so you think like sword, why is it a sword or an athame? And what I always tell people is if you take the word sword and you take the S and you put it on the end, you have words. And we think that, say that thing of like sharp tongue, words that cut. So those are a couple of shadow aspects of the qualities of East. But again, air, thought, words, communication, mind. The clarity of mind that cuts through the fog of confusion, the athame. And then the deities, I included Eastern deities here. Kuan Yin, Tara, Saraswati, Amaterasu. But you could certainly, any deities, if you wanted to do deity invocations, anything that's related to these themes of air, thought, mind, communication. Saraswati in particular is a good one for this because she's the goddess of music, science, and learning in the Hindu pantheon. So that's the east. Now we go to the south, which is the energy of fire. So the south is that's where the sun is at its height in the middle of the day. It's when it's hot or warmest in the day. So the sun represents fire, or the south represents fire, energy, creativity, sexuality. And sexuality and creativity are tied together because it is from our sexual energy that we create, not just life. But when we have full access to healthy sexuality, we have that inspiration to create. And if any of you read the book Vagina, you'll understand even the physiology for women related to that and the nerve endings connected with our clitoris and how much our pleasure is connected with our creativity. Animals include things like snakes, salamanders, lions, phoenix, or any animal associated with heat or fire. And these aren't written in stone. None of what I'm sharing with you is like, dogmatic written in stone, but these are what I'm sharing is like sort of typical what you'll find themes. So colors, reds, golds, orange tones. And deities. So fire goddesses, the ones who transform through the energy of fire or destruction to allow something new to be birthed. Kali, Pele, Durga, Shakti. And also I included Ganesha, who in Thailand is called Prat Pikanet. Prat Pikanet. And that's the Thai word for his name, his title here. And he's the patron god of artists and musicians because the South is for creativity. So that's why I included it. And you will see of all the sort of Hindu pantheon in this Buddhist country, you will see Prat Pikanet the most. If you see him, he's popular because artists, musicians like him. They turn to him first. And then the tool is the wand for sparking the fires of creativity. And the wand also is symbolic of the male phallus, which has to do with fertility, creativity, sexuality, and all of that energy. So that's how those sort of tie in. Then we have the west, which is water. So the west represents the element of water and the associated energies of feelings, emotions, intuition. The animals tend to be dolphins, mermaids, whales, fishes, anything associated with the water. Colors are green, turquoise, and sea-like colors. Some of the deities I came up with some water goddesses, Yemaya, Tiamat, Mayamati, Aphrodite, Ganga, and Sulis. These are different water-type goddesses from different parts of the world. And then the tool is the chalice or a vessel that holds the waters of life. So we all, as women, carry that Western tool. Well, we carry all of them really, but with our womb. The womb is also the vessel in that way. And then we have the north, which the element for the north is earth. And this represents physical form. So the body, health, physicality, mountains, rocks, crystals, money. And then the animals are northern animals, bear, elk, moose, reindeer. So the north, that's the north energy. And then the colors are black, brown, white. And a few deities I came up with that to me represent sort of the later stages of life or the dark night of winter or earth energy. White buffalo woman, Caradwin, and Freya. And then the tool is the 5-pointed star, the pentagram, which is a symbol of the protection of the goddess. And in the early Christian church, when they were really wanting to rein in the pagans and the witch burning era and all of that, this pentagram, which represents the human body, so the arms out, the legs down, and the head, the 5 points, got turned upside down and became the symbol of the devil. And this is why we often see symbols of the pentagram, the 5-pointed star, point down, top point downward, circle around it as the symbol of the devil or Satanism or this kind of thing. It was stolen from what really truly is a symbol of the goddess. excuse me a minute. Let me just check. Can you hear that background noise? Is it distracting? Is it distracting? No. The village, I'm in a village. So the village, they're playing music, and then the village head is going to talk about something. I don't know. So, okay. So we're almost there, but I have something more I want to share about the pentagram, because this is important, because it has a trigger association for a lot of Westerners, much like the swastika. You know, the Nazi Germany took the swastika and turned it the other way. This is an ancient, ancient Hindu symbol. So the five-pointed star, couple of interesting tidbits about that. The planet Venus goes through a through a cycle where sometimes you see her above the horizon and sometimes you see her below the horizon. And when you track her for 5 cycles and you track the actual pattern she makes, it is actually a pentagram. So she really, you know, this 5 points is really the symbol of the goddess. And one other thing related to that is if you take an apple and you slice it in half and look at it, it's the 5-pointed star where the seeds are. And that's why the apple is sacred to Venus or Aphrodite and some of the other goddesses. So that is step 3. Now, before we go to the next part, just doing a quick check-in. Does anyone have any comments, questions, curiosity? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. I did this shamanic Pachacuti Mesa training where they have the directions just differently. They have the north, the air, the spirit is the north. Yep. And then the you know, so it's just the other way around, a little bit different. The only one that's the same as west being water, and then fire is in the east. And yes. So what would you say?
Yeah. Great question. And this came up in the previous call as well, a little bit differently, because someone there had learned how to, Tammy, I think it was, go counterclockwise. Mm-hmm. So different traditions, that's why I said different traditions have different symbols and meanings. Honestly, I think it has to do with where you live, where you lived on the planet, what's north, what's south, what's east, what's west. So that might be part of it. Certainly in the Andean tradition that I have a little bit of training in, it is also, it's like what you're saying. So the east is, I forget. The north is the spirit, and the south.
Yes, north is the spirit, and the south is the earth, and the east, the fire's in the east. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that the fire's in the south because it's the hottest part of the day. But you could say, well, the sun also rises in the east. I mean, there's so many ways to. But so there's
If you're in South America, though, the hottest part of the day, the sun would be in the north, right? Is that how?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Of course, yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But it always rises in the east.
Yeah, yeah. And then depending on where water is relative to you. So the important thing here is like learn the traditions and do the one that makes sense for you, for sure. I have a hard time remembering some of the animals that are associated in the South American tradition because I'm new to that tradition and I got 30 years with this other tradition. So yeah, but it's a really good point. And that's where I really feel like it has to be about what resonates for you. But the way this question came up in the previous call was Tammy was asking about clockwise versus counterclockwise because she had learned it counterclockwise. And so I said, the way I learned it is you do clockwise magic, like if you're moving around a circle, when you want to invoke or bring forward or manifest. But when you want to banish or remove or eliminate, you go counterclockwise. But then Christina pointed out, and this makes sense, there's that whole thing about when you're south of the equator, like the toilet flushes in the opposite direction and stuff. So again, you know, Andean traditions, which was what Tammy was referring to, they're south of the equator. She was talking about Peruvian tradition. So yeah, these are good points. And this is where one of the things I love about women's circles and the tradition of Wicca, as I had learned it, is the relinquishment of so much ritualized dogma. There can be a lot of ritual, but without the dogma, without the, you know, you have to do this and you have to say it this way and you have to do it this way, and it becomes meaningless at some point. Whereas this is a very creative way. So some women might bring in, say, hey, we're going to do a ceremony and we want to call in the directions in the South American tradition. Great, let's do it. Okay, cool. Any other questions? And how is this background sound? Is it annoying or is it okay? It's not annoying? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next part. I'm going to pull up my outline. Okay, deity invocation. So once we've invoked called in the 4 directions, then we're going to call in whatever other energies we want to call in. Traditionally, this would be the goddess and the god. And the high priestess would call in the goddess and the high priest would call in the god, and it could be very ceremonial. In the Dianic tradition, which was very popular, made very popular by Z. Budapest and her writings. I think one of her books is on the reading list, not required, but anyway, the Dianic tradition seems to have arisen in the 70s, the sort of the movement of women's liberation paired with the movement of lesbian separatist feminism, where women were basically saying, we've had enough of men and we're just doing our own thing. And I was not part of that, but I intersected with it. I had midwives who were lesbian separatists, and we had very few books in those days to learn from. So some of the books were written in that way. They were written for women's circles. I was in a women's circle. I did very little ceremony with men until much later. But it wasn't because we were all married, we had sons, that's how we all came together. So it wasn't that we were Dianic in any kind of political statement kind of way, but we were sort of by default Dianic. We were interested in goddess the divine feminine archetypes. We didn't even call it divine feminine then. That phrase was not in the lexicon yet. We were interested in goddess energies. We were interested in Mother Peace tarot cards. We were interested in feminine archetypes that offered us symbols of personal power and self-empowerment. So in the Dianic tradition, everything would be feminine and goddess oriented. So we would not call in a god, we'd call in a goddess. And typically we'd call in a goddess that was related to the theme of whatever the ritual was. So aligning with the theme, holiday, or process of ceremony. And just like with the directions, that can be fairly simple. It could be a guided meditation, and it could be a really sort of elaborate ceremonial invocation where the high priestess or the woman invoking, we often took turns doing the different roles. So the woman invoking the goddess would maybe dress like the goddess she wanted to invoke that night, and do a prayer or do a little background research and share about this goddess in the circle with us. So all of these things are possible for us when we're together. And for you, as you take this work into your own work in the world. Okay, so then we go on to the teaching or the process. So once there's the space is purified, the altar is made, the group gathers, ground and center, call in the 4 directions, call in the deity or the energies, whatever it is. You can call in archangels, whatever is meaningful for you or contextually appropriate. Then we go to the teaching or the process. And this, in a way, is the meat, I would say, this is the focal point of the ceremony. And it can be as creative as you want. So let's look at some of the purposes for having a ceremony. Moon phases. These are very typical to have a new moon, full moon ceremonies. That could absolutely be the theme. The wheel of the year. So the different holidays, the different Sabbaths, the solstices, the equinoxes, and the 4 what are considered the more powerful Sabbaths of the year. And that you can see the PDF in the Facebook group if you haven't downloaded it. When you're looking at our Facebook group and you go to the left, you'll see the place that says files, I think. And you click on that and then you scroll, you'll find the wheel of the year. And there's a little description of each of them with a little picture of a wheel of the year. So those in traditional culture were all celebrated. Then we have rites of passage. So rites of passage can be doing a blessing way for a pregnant woman. This could be a celebration of a birth. This could be a marriage ceremony or hand fasting. This could be when girls come of age. Oh, we need to bring that rite of passage back to this planet so badly. It could be the death rites also, when someone's getting ready to make their passage. It could be when a woman when she stops her bleeding and she steps into the role of Maga, she who holds her blood within. So all of these are possible rites of passage, ceremony, theme. You build a theme around it, build a teaching around it. Whoever's the facilitator or high priestess or, organizing or creating the teaching would create the theme related to that. Now, most rituals have enactments. And so the first thought is the maypole. So the maypole comes from May Day, which is one of the high holy holidays in the old Wicca tradition. The pole is the phallus, and the ribbons that the people dance and weave around is that weaving of the feminine energy around the phallus. And this was a symbolic enactment of calling forth the fertility for the fields. And enactments can be like if you're in the dark of the moon, or the moon is waning, so you've had the full moon, and now you're somewhere where the light of the moon is burning off, and you're moving back toward the new moon. That's a great time to do burning ceremonies, where you want to burn away that which no longer serves you. So an enactment can be that you write down the thing you want to let go of, and everyone writes it down, and they put it in a cauldron in the center or a bonfire and burn it. So those are enactments, and they're, again, as creative as you can be. You can offer prayers into a stone. At the first of two of the ceremonies I'm going to lead here while I'm in Bai, the first one was the theme was forgiveness, compassion, mercy. And we called in Kuan Yin, and I gave each woman a stone. I just gathered stones from around here. And I had them, during a guided meditation, hold the stone on their heart. And they went on a journey to meet Kuan Yin that I guided them through, receive the transmission of her blessings, and allow that to be infused into the stone, so that they had this stone whenever they needed mercy and compassion for themselves or others in their lives. So these are enactments. And if there isn't an enactment, if it's just a gathering and you don't want to have it ceremonial, this would be the time when you could do sharing. You could pass a talking stick or a talking sacred object at that time to share, again, depending on the ceremony. So the sun is setting and it's starting to get chilly, so I need to close my doors now. So if any of you have any questions, I'm going to answer them in a sec. I'll be right back. Bird. Okay, any questions? No? Tracking with me okay? All right, good. Thank you for waiting. I knew I was going to have to do that, but it was so sunny and nice, I didn't want to close the doors till I had to. Okay, so the teaching, step 5, the teaching or process is kind of that's the core of the ceremony. And then we get to the magic part of the ceremony. This is the juicy stuff. Raising power. Now, I don't always do raising power because I really feel like I need to be in a group where they're going to be able to do this. Raising power comes from really altering consciousness. And so when I refer to magic in the context of ceremony in particular, I use Starhawk's definition, changing consciousness at will. And so the way to do that, I mean, we all know at this point, back in the days when I was learning this, we didn't know as much about hypnosis, self-hypnosis, trance states, the law of attraction, or any of that stuff. But now we're coming to understand that what we think about really creates, and the frequency So the feelings associated with it create a frequency that goes out. So when we think negative thoughts and we start feeling negative emotions and we activate those a lot, we put ourselves in a sort of trance state of activating negativity. So in a ceremony, the magic is when we use usually music, drumming, dancing, and in a movement that stays focused and centered. So not random, just off dancing, la la la, but in a concentrated way toward a specific intention of the group to build the energy as we alter our state into that state of where the conscious mind is more relaxed and we're more in that altered creative state, or what would be called alpha, or even alpha or theta brainwave state. So where we get out of our minds, and we do that through dance, drumming, chanting. And so what I said earlier is I don't do this with everybody, because it's really not sufficient to chant, we all come from the goddess 4 times. No, more like 40 times before moving into the next chant. Building, and what we're doing is we're usually either moving around the circle or doing an actual spiral dance, which I'll teach for the women who don't know when we're there. We're building the energy, the drumming, the dancing, the chanting, the drumming, the dancing, the chanting, the drumming, the dancing, the chanting. And before we've done that, we've set our intention. What is the intention? Is it a burning ritual? The intention is to release all that we're ready to let go of, and send it through the portal that we consciously, intentionally choose to allow to open in order to to transform into light. Or maybe we want to say prayers. Maybe the intention is that we're going to raise power in order to send forth love to a community that needs it, or to refugees, or to the waters of Mother Gaia, or to all of our grandmothers whose tolerance of a difficult world allowed us to come into this power, or for our own activation of leadership in a sacred way. Whatever it is, we have that intention, we create that during the step 5, we know what it is, whatever it is, and then we chant and raise energy. And then it's the high priestess's role, or the facilitator. So when I say high priestess, I don't mean that she's higher above everyone else. She's the facilitator. She's the one who's sort of overall managing the energy in that group, keeping her finger on the pulse of the energy. So when the energy gets raised to sort of a pitched fever, it's the high priestess who then begins to get everyone to send the energy up through the portal to its intended goal. And again, because we know, that gave me a hot flash, because we know that the mind creates, our thoughts create, and emotionally and energetically charged thoughts create powerfully. And when we do it in a collective, we really change things. We can really make energetic change on the earth. And I'm convinced that despite the insanity that we see on the planet right now, that it's because of all the circles all over the world for decades before this time, that it's not as bad as it might have been. And that's a conversation for another time, but this is the point of the raising of power. Song, dance, spiral dance, directing the energy, the repetition, releasing through the portal, and being clear on our intention of what we're raising. And I'm going to talk about step 7 now, and then again ask if you have any questions. So hold any questions you have for a little bit longer. So once we've been dancing and singing, and we've raised the energy and we've sent it through the portal, this is a time where there's a great openness. There's a great connection to spirit. And so what we typically do is we release, we bring in some of that energy for our own nourishment, and we go to the earth and we touch the earth and we offer that energy to Mother Gaia. Then this is a great time to go into trance. This is the perfect time to seek our own individual guidance. And this can be done in a number of ways. We can just simply drop down into silent inner meditation. We could, the high priestess or whoever's the facilitator can guide us on a journey. We could pull a card and meditate on the card. We could get out our journal and note anything that's arising for us. We could stare at a candle and trance or scry, what's called scrying, just staring with a diffused vision into a candle or a bowl of water. Any of these are possibilities. So it's really, again, it's the perfect time at this time to go into that trance-like state to receive. Basically, we're seeking insight for any action that's aligned with, what did we just send off? What's my personal next step after the circle is complete to walk in the world with this energy in a way that's my marching orders, if you will, or my divine next step. So, questions. Let me move this. Questions? No? Okay. So let's go on to step 8. So this is the ideal time for sharing. Now, if we didn't do the raising of power, then you do the teaching part, whatever that is, maybe a guided meditation, and then the sharing. But if you do the whole raising of power and then the trance state, then that's when, the facilitator or high priestess at some point will designate when it's time to come back into the circle, come more to the waking state. And this is where we pass around a sacred object of some kind and representation of the talking stick, which is a Native American tradition of who has the floor for speaking. And so just a couple of points about circle principles and managing group energy during this part of it. It's the facilitator or high priestess's role to define the parameters of the sharing. And again, things are different when you're in a closed circle and you all know each other well and you work together regularly. You all know how to share the floor, share the mic. But sometimes when you're holding space in a circle, you'll find that there's one person who doesn't understand the principles of this, and they could go on and on tangents without clarity about what the focus of the question is. So the facilitator can model that to start, can say, okay, so we're going to pass this talking stick or talking angel or whatever it is that you have the object. So let's each take 2 minutes to share what was what was the hardest, the most uncomfortable thing about today's, ceremony, or how you're going to take this into the world, or the meaning of the card that you pulled, or what's most present for you. In other words, you create some structure around it so that everyone knows. And then even if you have women who've never been in circle before, or women or men, you could then model it. So you could say, so for me, what was my card was this, and the meaning that it had, what I noticed first was this, and what I felt was this, and I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but later on I'm gonna journal on it. Boom, you modeled how much time there was available for that particular sharing. You pass the talking stick. And a couple other things about that: whoever has the floor, the rest of us, our role is to listen attentively and to hold that space and allow whoever's speaking to fully have the floor. So it's important, again, if you're facilitating space and you have new people, to be sure to share with them. So please, when one person's speaking, no side conversations, so that everyone feels fully heard and witnessed. And then another thing about circle principles is, I like to say, no judgment, no advice. So when a woman is sharing, we hold the space, or a man if you're in a circle with both. We're holding the space, we're listening attentively, and really giving them the space to share whatever is present for them. This is not a time to offer advice. If they're crying, it's not a time to shove tissues in their face. You may pass a box of tissues over. It's not a time to be in judgment either. So just notice when you're in judgment, or any things like, well, they should really blah, 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 blah. just really, the more that we can hold unconditional loving space, non-judgmental space for someone with wherever they're at, the more they can release it. Now, in a working group, obviously that, like a closed group, that can have more spaciousness depending on the agreements of the group. There could be, you do the talking stick where you share, and then another one where you offer feedback or insight. So again, there's flexibility, but the basic principles are stick to the topic of what you're talking about. Don't hog the floor. Please listen rather than speak when someone else is speaking, and withhold judgment or advice unless it is asked for. Then you can include food here, or I would usually do the food right after everyone is shared. Food brings people back into their bodies, especially if you're doing raising of power and the raising of the cone of power and sending it off and trance. Food is very important at that point. The traditional would have been oat cakes and mead, which is wine made of honey. Anything to ground them. Here in Thailand, it's often a little bit of fruit. Ground people. Now, again, when you have a closed group where you all know the routine, you can eat and hold space at the same time. If you have a big group that's people come and go and there's inexperienced people, don't introduce food during sharing, because invariably eating is a social thing. People will start eating and chatting and, oh here, have a tissue or whatever, and it just dissipates the energy. So a lot of these things I'm talking about are really about holding that container, that energy, so everyone feels safe, feels heard. But then again, and grounding is a part of that. And especially here where we all have to ride off on motorcycles in the dark after our women's circles. So we won't at our retreat though. So that's the sharing part. And then after that, we open the circle. And we do the opening of the circle in the reverse order. So we release whatever deities, archangels, energies that were invoked first. And then we go north. Well, whatever way you started, you're going to do it in reverse order. So in the case of the way I was teaching it here today, you'd go north, you'd release the north, then the west, then the south, then the east. Often this is quicker and less ceremonial, but it doesn't have to be. And it could be as simple as everyone gathers in the circle, stands up, holds hands, and goes, Goddess, we release you. North, powers of the north, we thank you for being in our circle, hail and farewell. Powers of the west, we thank you for being in our circle, hail and farewell, around the circle. And then the very final thing I want to share with you, and I don't need to look at my thing for this, the very final thing I want to share with you is the beautiful ending prayer that I've been doing for years that I just feel is so sweet. And anytime I say it, I really notice that there's at least a few people in the group who just delight in it. And it goes like this. The circle is open and yet unbroken. May the peace of the goddess be in our hearts. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. And you could exchange the goddess for may the peace of the divine. So at my wedding, at my ceremony, we did this. And it was funny because I raised my son in Wicca, and here he is, this man with this big beard and gruff, voice. And when we got to that part, you could see he was like so into it, and merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. I was like, oh, that's my boy. So yeah, but I said at that, because we had men and women, I said, I'll say it one more time. The circle is open and yet unbroken. May the peace of the divine be in all of our hearts. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. So again, there's flexibility there. Excuse me, I'm getting cold and I need to find my sleeve. So then, okay, just got to find my sleeve first. Talking and sleeving wasn't working. So I think that is, yes it is. So that is the teaching. And the reason why I wanted to do it now is because I really want us to have some knowledge when we get together. So we're like ready to go into action to different degrees. So you don't have to master this, but I wanted you to have exposure. Part 2 of this will come the first morning, where I'm going to teach you more chants. We'll look at building altars, and I'm sure the other stuff will come up by then. So So with that, I just want to again open the floor for questions or comments or insights or anything at all that you'd like to share before we wrap it up for today. Nothing? Does anyone have experience doing ceremony like this? Claudia, I know you have facilitation experience. Have you ever done it along this kind of pattern, this kind of line?
Yeah, maybe that's where the question comes up. So what I've noticed, even if I stick to a kind of, you know, the different steps, and I haven't done it quite like this, I really like this, but it's ended up being that there's always that magical phase and the trance-like phase. But I haven't specifically done this thing of bringing the energy up, which I think is really interesting. But what I've noticed is that even if you have how different it is from group to group, because yeah, I don't have the same women. I have a different group each week because I do this on the retreats, and how the group defines where it goes. But your role then is to really contain the space, because it can be that, you know, you've got a chatty group and they all want to go out, and you've got to really be aware of how you get a sense of it quite soon in you know, and just react to that and be and it is really creative. It's so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because even though I've created this structure, and I've said a few times, it's very creative. I didn't create it, I learned it and wrote it down for you. There is the element, part of the creative element is you could say, well, I've got this whole ritual and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and you get there and you're like, nope, not. The energy is completely not appropriate for that. So you always have to leave room for that little bit of magic, that little bit of reading the energy. And that is the quality of the high priestess, this high priestess archetype. And again, the high priestess doesn't mean higher, above, over others. It means that you are the one who holds and contains the space. You are the one who manages the energy and focuses the energy. So you're like the mama of the group, the mama hen in a way. And so, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, because the different groups have different qualities. So anything else? Anyone else having any awarenesses or thoughts they want to share?
Yeah, that would be great, Nicola. I was just wondering, with the raising power, will you talk more about, you know, what's appropriate in terms of songs and dance, and for releasing, and songs and dance for sending love to people suffering, you know, for the different or for the different intentions that we're going to use?
Great question. So in terms of song and dance, that doesn't have to specifically relate. I mean, you're never going to catch me playing gangsta music. That's not going to happen. There's sacred chants. But the intention is more like you said it. Like it could be, so if it's a burning ritual, so we're all releasing that which no longer serves us individually, and we have a little fire in the middle, and we've all taken our turns putting the things in the fire. We could say so as a group, we could just quickly say like, okay, so we're going to raise power now to release this and ask the divine to transmute it into healing energy. Where shall we send it? Oh, let's send it to the children, children refugees or whatever. So we just then all hold that in our mind as we do chanting and dancing and singing. And I'm going to teach you a lot of chants when we're there. So, and some other women probably have chants as well. So you'll be learning those. There are some specific ones that are great for certain things. Like any kind of heart activation, I love to share my chant. It goes like this. We open our hearts in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. We open our hearts in sweet surrender to the luminous love light of the One. And then it goes on from there. So if we're doing a heart thing, I like to do that. But there are many. There are goddess chants. There are the Hindu chants. There's the Tara chant. There's the one that goes, it's a Tibetan. It goes, I don't know what it means, but it goes, Om Benza Satte Hung. Om Benza Satte Hung. Om Benza Satyang. Om Benza Satyang. And I used to use that as a lullaby for my son when he was little. I never knew it was Tibetan. I thought it was Native American. So there are different. Does that kind of answer your question? I mean, we'll go deeper into that when we're together.
Yeah, does. And then I have one more question. Under the trance, it says scrying.
Yeah. Yes, scrying is when, that's that part where you can, thank you, I guess I didn't say the word. Scrying is a word for when you're staring at something and you're zoning out into the trance state. So you could scry into a crystal ball, you could scry into a bowl of water, you can scry into a candle. And it's the word for going into that trance state where you're staring at one thing to get, information.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to end the recording part now.